What's up, YouTube? This is Casual Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm back at you guys today with my Beast deck that I've recently just made, like in the last month, for January 2019. As if this deck really gets updated a whole lot, but um, I don't know. I wanted to make another deck, and I was looking into it, and I've always wanted to be able to make this guy right here for a while. I love Master of Oz. He's cool. So I made my own kind of Beast deck where it's all Beast monsters in the main deck. So I hope you guys can appreciate that. If it sucks, it's okay. It's like table 500. So keep that in mind. I don't think you should try to take this to a regional or anything like that. But anyway, let's get into it. So you play triple rescue cat, the kitty. So the kitty, I don't know, within the last within the last year, right? Within the last 2 years, they got moved to 3. Well, it was banned, and then they finally they brought it back to 1, tested it out, I think, and then they moved to the 3. So the only change they made to this card is that the monsters that come out, their effects are negated, which isn't really a big deal. And then you can only use the effect of Rescue Cat once per turn, so it's a hard once per turn. But Rescue Cat is the life force of this deck. If you don't get Rescue Cat, it makes things difficult. But Rescue Cat is kind of how you get all your plays. The other 3 of is triple Egotistical Ape. So he is a amazing card for Beast decks in general. So what he says is that he can't be normal summoned or set. You have to special summon him by sending a beast from your hand to the graveyard. And whatever that beast monster's level is, you can either increase his level or decrease his level by the same amount. Or you can choose to just not do it at all. You don't have to tamper with the level if you don't want to. But just a great tuner that kind of can constantly change his level, get stuff in your graveyard, all that kind of stuff. And we do want beast monsters in your graveyard. I'll show you that in a little bit why. But he's great. I tried running him at 1 or 2 because I wanted to try some new things, but him at 3 I think is just kind of essential. Alright. Double Photon Saber Tiger. So this card can search itself basically, so if you normal summon it, you can just add another copy. I don't remember that. I think it's probably a hard once per turn or something. No, it's not. But if you don't have another copy of him out on the field, his attack becomes 1200, or it goes down to 1200 basically, but if you have another copy, it'll be at its normal attack of 2000, which is not hard to do. But I'll show you kind of how you can make that work. But this card's good in here. He's kind of can just be a big beat stick, or can kind of add some consistency to your deck. I tried 3 originally. I think 2 is better because it kind of reduces your chances of drawing more than 1 copy of it. So you kind of just want only 1 copy, normal summon and search the other. You only want them in tandem. I don't know what a third copy would really do for you other than obviously it would help you draw it faster, but the chance if you drew the second copy, you would be mad at yourself. And then I think everything for the monsters is a 1 of, but so I run 2 normal monsters in here, 1 Firewing Pegasus and 1 Big Koala. I'll kind of show you guys more of why I'm running those. I'll get into that. This card is more versatile than you would think in this deck, and same with this. Obviously, you guys know I need this to Fusion Summon to make my Master of Oz, but you can do a few other things in here with that. So I'll get to those in a second.
I mean, they're just big beat sticks.
They are, they are. There's nothing too elaborate, but I have a few plays. So I am running a little bit of some Fabled monsters, the Fabled Catsith and the Fabled Cerebrus. So basically what this comes down to is we do have one way of getting them discarded to do their effects. If he's discarded, I think he can just pop a card on the field, face up, I think. And maybe not just be face up, maybe it's just anything. Yeah, face up 1 card on the field, destroy it. Okay. He's a 1-star tuner. He's a 2-star tuner. If he's discarded, he can just special summon himself. That's pretty much the only reason why they're in there. Not for the discard, but for the fact that they are monsters that you can bring out with Rescue Cat and are tuners, and Fables have some synchros that you can make, so it kind of works perfectly with that. We got Elephun. Elephun, what's important about him is he's an Earth Beast tuner that's level 2, so can help you go into things like Nat Beast, stuff like that. 1 Sea Koala and 1 Tree Otter. These 2 can fuse together to make a cool fusion monster, but aside from that, it's nice because if let's say you drew your Elephant or something like that, but you still wanted to make Nat Beast, which is a very important card in this deck, he can kind of help with that because he's a level 2 Earth and you run a level 3 Earth tuner in here. And then Tree Otter is important because he's a water, and I'll get to that in a second. They both have effects that if you have another beast on the field, I think he can increase one of your monsters by 1,000, and he can decrease one of your opponent's monsters by 1,000, something like that. Not that would really ever happen. You're usually only getting these out with Rescue Cat, which means their effects would be negated on the field. Was Pero Cerebrus. This card, like I said, if you So I'll just go into it right here. So these are your main plays that, like, if you got Rescue Cat and you didn't draw any of the main pieces, you preferably would want Elephant and any combination of these two. So if you guys can see that. So both of these could make Nat Beast. If you generally you'd want to sync with Mind Mole. Mind Mole says if he's synchro summoned into a Beast monster and he was used as a material, you get the draw card. Also, I think it takes 2. If he's on the field, it takes 2 attacks basically to kill him, for him to be destroyed by battle. But the main thing is it's nice to get him out of the deck, sink in a Nat Beast, and draw a card. That's great. Now, if you already drew this or whatever, if you want more protection, you can sink into this using Pero, and you go into Nat Beast or whatever. And Cerebrus says if he's in your graveyard and you take damage from battle or card effect, you can banish him from the graveyard to, like, pop a face-up card on the field, I think. Target 1 card on the field destroyed, so it doesn't have to be face-up. But yeah, so they're both versatile, they're both good, even though I don't like the fact that this card is a gold rare because it's really gross. Yeah, they're both great. Like I said, everything in here that's a one of, I think you really only want one of it because you don't want to draw it in your hand. You want it to be in your deck for Rescue Cat. I do run some X-Sabers in here. So you got X-Saber, Dark Soul, and Airbellum. Airbellum is your 3-star tuner that's Earth, so you can make Nat Beast, like I said, that little sea koala thing or whatever. And then Dark Soul, he is what you need to make one of the synchros that's really good. But he's a 3-star Earth. If he's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add an X-Saber at the end phase from your deck to your hand. He's the only other one I play. So if I sync with him and he's still in my deck, I can just add him. And then he says if he inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, you can rip a random card out of their hand. So they're both decent on their own, but you want to kind of play them together, and I'll show you in a bit. Fenrir. So I have a way of actually practically making this card. For anyone who doesn't know what this card does, if it destroys a monster by battle, you can skip your opponent's next draw phase. Obviously, that's really good. We have ways of beefing up our beast monsters, so this card can get pretty big. The combo, all you need is this card and Rescue Cat. It's the only 2 cards you need. I could play more copies of this. I just would have to find the room. That's if you want to kind of like make this really fast. But the thing is, you have to go second in order to make that to work because you have to be able to destroy one of their monsters by battle. So that is what it is. But he's pretty good. By the way, to summon him, you just need to banish 2 water monsters from your graveyard. And I'll get into how to do that. It does take the Tree Otter as one of the monsters that you need. You do need this in your deck to do that because he's the only other water monster I play in the main deck. One Dusk Kangaroo. This is basically in here just to fuse to make Master of Oz. I do play them separately. If you can get the Master of Oz play, it's great. But this deck isn't built around it. I did back in the day. I was like really focused on trying to make Master of Oz, and I tried to make a Master of Oz deck a year ago, 2 years ago. I don't really like focusing my decks off of just summoning 1 card. That kind of gets boring really quick. Bazoo the Soul Eater. This is like my original card that I pulled this out of Labyrinth of Nightmare way back in the day, and I kept it all these years. So I was happy I could find a deck that I could actually play this in. This card is actually decent here because it can like beef itself up to 2,500 by banishing 3 monsters. The other great thing is I do play Solidarity in here, so you can summon Bazoo, and if you like went to your extra deck a little bit and there's some monsters in your graveyard that aren't beasts, you can banish those out of your graveyard, and then your Solidarity will be live again, so I kind of like that. One Goldfax of the Nordic Beast. He's just in here. If you can like get him along with like Rescue Cat, you can easily sync into Thor, the Azir. So that's really cool. Basically, he just says if your opponent controls a synchro monster, you can special summon him. If you can get that, great. If not, it's whatever. So, Twin-Headed Beast. This card, and where is it at? Firewing Pegasus. I'll get into it. I'll just kind of like bust these out real quick. I'll kind of skip ahead. These are your targets for this. Onslaught of the Fire Kings. So, you can play 3 Onslaughts if you have the room. Onslaught says if your opponent controls a monster and you don't, you can just special summon a Fire Beast or Wing Beast or Beast Warrior from your deck. Obviously, this is a Beast deck, so we're only playing Beast. So, you have a play with Firewing Pegasus. He has more attack. He has 2250. Him being a normal is actually important. I'll get to that in a second. And then Twin-Headed Beast. Obviously, this thing says that the monster that comes out has its effects negated and it's destroyed at the end phase. There's a few different things that we can do to prevent the monster from being destroyed. But Twin-Headed Beast, if you can like sync with him or whatever and get him in your graveyard and you have a way of bringing him back, which we do, his effect says he can attack twice a turn. So that can be really good, especially with some things that we can do with it. But like I said, I skipped ahead to the spells just to kind of show you. The last of the monsters, one green baboon, Defender of the Forest. He says that if a beast monster is destroyed by if it's destroyed except during the damage step, you can pay 1,000 life points and summon this card from your hand or graveyard. So preferably you'd like want this in your graveyard and not in your hand. That way you're not like using a resource out of your hand. You probably wouldn't want that, but we have different ways. Like you said, Onslaught, that's a way for your monster to get killed by a card effect. There's a few other cards in here, excuse me. There's a few other cards in this deck that will actually destroy your monster or whatever. But even if your opponent kills one of your beasts, the fact that you can just get this guy out, he can get pretty beefy. Keep that in mind. But he's a really cool card. I've had this for a long time, so I like that. I could use that. The newest card that's in this deck that people should be running, if you did run a beast deck, is Danger Bigfoot. So he is the way that we discard the Fable monsters if you get it. You could play more copies of this card, but this card is a $20 card, so I thought one was just okay. But he says that to summon him, you can just have your opponent randomly, you reveal him, and then your opponent randomly picks a card out of your hand. If it's not him, he will special summon, and then you get the draw card to kind of replenish your hand. And then if he is discarded, if your opponent actually does pick this card, you can pop a card on the field. So he's still really good. He's 3,000, so he's a gigantic beat stick. So that's all. It works great with us. Okay, spells. You already saw my 2 onslaughts. I play 3 Ayers Rock Sunrise. So Ayers Rock Sunrise is the monster reborn of the deck. It just works for resurrecting beast monsters. And like I said, all the main deck monsters in this deck are beast. The greater, like, it's a little bit better than monster reborn for this deck because of the fact that it also says for every beast warrior, or wing beast that's in your graveyard when you activate this card, when you resurrect your monster, every one of those that you have, your opponent's monsters, all of the monsters on the field, lose 200 attack for each one for the rest of his turn. So basically, like, if I had 7 beast monsters in my graveyard after I played Ayers Rock Sunrise and brought something back, if I had 7 beast monsters left in there, all my opponent's monsters on the field would lose 1,400 attack. That's pretty good. So that's why I like it. I think it's a mandatory 3 of, because you're constantly with Rescue Cat, you're putting so much crap in your graveyard. The last 3 of is triple Wild Nature's Release. So Wild Nature's Release is kind of like really why I wanted to make this deck. Wild Nature's Release says that you can target a beast or beast warrior monsters on your field, and then whatever its defense is, you increase its attack by that much, and then it dies at the end. But we have a couple ways, but that's another way Green Bamboo would trigger his effect, is because you did Wild Nature's Release. But if you notice, a lot of the beast monsters I have, Twin-Headed Beast, he's got 1900 defense, so like there's a lot of beast monsters that have a lot of defense that can get boosted up. If you Wild Nature's Release and get Twin-Headed Beast, and he actually has his effect, like you in order to get his effect, you usually have to Ayers Rock Sunrise him, but I mean, him being beefed up to 3,600, being attacked twice, that's pretty deadly. So that's why I love OTK decks, but OTK decks that make it a little more challenging to get, those are the kind of decks I really like to play. This deck, like I said, is very, it's difficult to actually like win against modern decks, but it's just a fun casual deck. 2 O's, I play, like I said, the 2 onslaughts, but then I play 2 polys. I don't really think you would want to bump it to 3. I think 2 is just fine. Like, if you draw the second one, I mean, like, you still have, because I have multiple things that I'm trying to fuse together. And I'll show you when I get to my extra deck exactly. One of them is Master of Oz, you could see that. But 2 polys, it pretty much has to be polymerization. I don't really think you could use, like, a substitute card for it. 2 solidarities. Solidarity is really great in this deck. You do like the extra attack boost. It really helps. Because you're not necessarily going to be spamming a bunch of monsters and having, like, 5 different negates. That's not what this deck really does. But beefing some of your monsters up can be just as important, like I said, and because everything in the main deck is a beast, Solidarity is usually pretty live. For the 1-ofs, play 1 Reasoning. You run a bunch of different levels in here. If your opponent can guess what you're going to summon, good on them. That would be completely lucky on them. And most of the monsters that you get, you would want to have them a free special summon, or if it goes to the graveyard, you'd probably want them there too. And then lastly, 1 Closed Forest. So this is a recent addition as well. I wasn't running this card at first. So Closed Forest says, it's a field spell. It gives all your beast monsters 100 attack for every monster in your graveyard, so that's good. More attack power. And then once it's on the field, your opponent cannot activate new field spells, basically. So if they have one on the field, I don't exactly know how that works, because, you know, the old way was that you would kick their field spell off to play this one, but I don't really know how that would work. But basically, if you can first turn play this, then your opponent can't play field spells. That's just kind of an extra bonus. And then the turn this card is sent to the field, sent to the graveyard, your opponent still can't play field spells, so that's good. Now to the extra deck. So for the fusions, 1 Master of Oz. So Master of Oz, he's really like him. A Wild Nature's Release is why I wanted to make this deck. If you Wild Nature's Release him, he's at like what 7,900 attack points. I mean, that's almost an OTK right there. He's just amazing. I love the fact that I got an ulti. I've always wanted an ulti of that card. It looks great. Just a great card. Like Konami, like good job on him. How long ago did they fucking make this card? 13 years ago, something like that. Soul the Duelist, long time ago. Yeah, great card. So Koala, he's what you fuse the Tree Otter and Sea Koala to make. He just says you can discard a Beast Monster to send a Beast Monster from your hand to the graveyard, target a monster your opponent controls, destroy it. He's got 2,800 attack. So if you had a Poly in your hand and a Rescue Cat, you could just Rescue Cat the 2 materials and just fuse and make this guy. What I really like about this deck is it has so many different options that you could go into off of just like one card Rescue Cat. So I really like that. And it is a beast, so add a bonus. He is just, the only downside of him is he doesn't have a lot of defense, and they probably did that on purpose, so you wouldn't Wild Natures release him, but that's pretty much it. And then Twin Photon Lizard, this is what, the reason why you're playing the Photon Saber Tiger is because if you have Poly and a Photon Saber Tiger, you fuse them into this. This just takes 2 Photon Monsters. It has 2,400 attack. You could attack with that if you wanted to, but the cool thing is you can tribute this card, and then you can summon 2 Photon Monsters that you used for the summon. You can summon them back from your graveyard. So that is a way for you to pretty much get your Saber Tigers on the field together, and you'll have 2 2000 beat sticks if you want. Also, they're both level 3 because they're the same card, so you could go into a rank 3 if you want to. I do play 1 rank 3 in here. For the Synchros, Tatsunoko. So Tatsunoko, this is a combo I kind of invented because I mean, maybe someone else thought of it. I don't know. Probably not. Probably no one else cares. But if you have Rescue Cat in the Fenrir, you can basically, what you do is, let me see for a second. So you would Rescue Cat, and the targets you're looking for is Tree Otter and, give me a second, guys. Sorry. The fun of doing this and not being fully prepared. So you Rescue Cat, and you would go into these 2 if you had the Fenrir in your hand. And then you sync into Tatsunoko because you got a 1-star tuner and non-tuner. And I don't think you need a water. No. He's just 3-star generic. And then you just basically need to use any of the monsters out of your hand. It could be whatever. And just sync into one of the monsters that you can go into. I'll show you the rest of the synchros I'm playing. But then if you can do that, that's 2 water monsters in your graveyard because this will be in the graveyard. And then you go into Fenrir. So cool stuff. And then I play Fabled Unicorn. This card's really good. He just needs a Fabled Tuner and a non-tuner monster. And then he says if your opponent has the same number of cards in their hand as you do, you can negate all spell, trap, and monster effects are activated on the field and destroy them. So he can really screw over your opponent if you can like match it up right. He's not hard to get out. Like I said, I play a level 1 Fable Tuner, level 2 Fable Tuner, so you have some different combinations of you being able to get this card out. And with Solidarity being beefed up to 3,100, he can be pretty good. Nat Beast is essential. He's usually what you go into first turn or second turn, whatever. With Solidarity, you can beef him up to 3,000, but he's a really good card. Being able to shut your opponent out of spell cards. This is probably the most consistent deck that can make this card because you're playing 3 Rescue Cats. So, and by the way, anyone who doesn't know what Nat Beast does, you send 2 cards to top of your deck to graveyard to negate a spell. Fabled Ragin. So, I've heard some people say I need to take this card out. I like this card anyway. It takes a Fabled Tuner, non-tuner. So, I think the only way I can get this out with Rescue Cat, because the monsters have to be level 3 or lower, is Fabled Cerebrus with any level 3 non-tuner. So what he says is if you have 2 or less cards in your hand, or was it? Yeah, 2 or less cards in your hand, you can draw until you have 2 cards when he's summoned. So basically like or 1 or less, I guess. So I like to summon him with no cards in my hand and be able to draw 2 as soon as he's summoned. I like doing stuff like that. He doesn't come up a whole lot, but when he does, it's cool. And then you got X-Saber Hyunlei. So this is the card that you use the X-Sabers for. You technically just need the non-tuner X-Saber. The tuner can be anything, but in order for the levels to work in this deck, you need a 3-star tuner to make that. You can make it with like Egotistical Ape, I guess, but mainly you're wanting Air Bellum. And then you sync into this baby, and what she does is that when she's Synchro Summoned, you can basically blow up to 3 spell or traps your opponent controls. It's pretty ridiculous. Most of the time they're not going to be playing more than that, so you can clear the whole back row as long as they can't negate it. Or you just force them to like use it on this. Like, if they have a back row or counter trap, they're pretty much going to have to use it on that. Goyo Guardian, we can make this pretty easy. Rescue Cat, you can just go into Goyo. But you would probably do the same thing. Instead of making this is the other option you would make, is just use the X-Sabers to go into Goyo. Goyo, for anyone who doesn't know, if he kills a monster by battle, he can just bring it back on your side of the field in defense position. And he's got 2,800, pretty good. 1-star to Spark Dragon. This is the card that I like combined with this deck and actually like made it really, really good. So you have a bunch of different ways to make this, but generally you'd probably use Egotistical Ape to make this. But start a Spark Dragon. The great thing about this card, if you use Wild Nature's Release on another monster and you have this card as well, you can just target that monster you used it on, and then like it won't be destroyed by card effects this turn. So you saved it from Wild Nature's Release, so you're good there. If you used Onslaught of the Fire Kings and then summon, and you can make Stardust Spark Dragon, you can just target the monster you got out, and then it won't be destroyed. Also, it can protect itself, obviously, but Stardust Spark Dragon really, like, kind of like, I don't know what you would say, mixes and like gets this deck actually where it like feels like a good combination of cards. It feels like it kind of melds really well. Azuri's Silver Dragon. So this is what you do with your normal monsters, both with Firewing, Pegasus, and with Big Koala. So this just needs a tuner and a non-tuner normal monster. So we run 3-star tuners, so you can do it with Firewing, Pegasus, and then we run two level 2 tuners, so you can do it with Big Koala. One of the plays you can do is like I was showing you with Tatsunoko. If you can make Tatsunoko and you have this in your hand, you can sync with this in your hand to make Azuri's Silver Dragon. And then you keep him in defense, and then on every standby phase, he can just bring back a normal monster. So obviously you're going to bring back the one you used for the summon. So it's pretty much what he's good for. He can kind of protect himself for a whole turn. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But you do have easy ways of getting him out. And then one Leo. Leo's pretty important because he's a 10-star. You can also get this out with Tatsunoko if you have like the Green Baboon. But you have a few other ways of getting this out. Not too difficult. But Leo 3100, if you Wild Nature release him, he goes up to 5,000. With Solidarity, this thing's even beefier. For anyone who doesn't know, he can't be targeted except during your main phase 2. So he's pretty good still, especially in this deck. Last for the Synchros, Thor, Lord of the Aesir. So you only get this out with Goldfax because he needs a Nordic Beast tuner monster, and then he needs 2 or more non-tuner monsters. So you basically, if you like I said, if you have Goldfax, you can do Rescue Cat, or if you've already played Rescue Cat, and then you can like Azurak Sunrise it, and then have Goldfax in your hand. That's a good way to do it. But he's pretty awesome, and because he's a Beast Warrior, you can Wild Nature's release him, and that would put his attack up to 6,300, I think. Yeah, so he could get pretty beefy. But his effect is basically that like once per turn he can target a monster, like negate its effects, I think. And then if he's destroyed, sorry guys. During the end phase of this face, a card you control is destroyed by your opponent's card, either by a battle or card effect, and sent to the graveyard. You can banish the Nordic Beast Tuner, aka the Goldfax, from your graveyard and special summon this card. And then if he's summoned this way, you burn it for 800. The 800 is kind of like random, but the fact that he has like some extra protection is nice. Lastly, for the XYZs, my rank 3 for the, if I get, well, you could get this with Rescue Cat if you wanted to, but really I would use my Rescue Cat for other plays. But if you get the Photon Saber Tiger play, you can make this Mequipped Engineer. So this can also act as a Stardust Spark Dragon and protect your monsters. So the monster has to be in attack position, but once per turn during ally player's turn, you can target a monster, change it to defense, and then that monster can't be destroyed by battle or card effects for the whole turn. The difference between this and Stardust Spark Dragon is Stardust Spark Dragon just says a one-time thing, it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. This thing just says like, hey, for the whole turn it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. So that's kind of the difference. And then lastly, Photon Strike Bouncer is my rank 6. So Onslaught, you can easily get out the level 6 guy, and then like if you have Rescue Cat, you could sink into a level 6 and do something. And then if you need a little bit more protection, you could overlay into this, and then if your opponent activates a monster effect on their field, I believe, you can detach material, burn him for 1,000, and negate that effect. It doesn't destroy the monster it negates, but he's still pretty beefy. 2,700, I like it. Anyway, that's it for the deck profile. Hopefully this didn't last too long. This deck is purely casual. I swear, if you try to do anything with this deck competitively, you'll get shit on. It needs too much. Like I kind of like that it needs like you need specific things in your hand, but you can't just open up any hand and think you're gonna be able to do shit. There's sometimes you straight up just don't have a play. This deck, I'm willing to hear suggestions if someone's like, hey, you're doing this wrong, here's what you should play. Keep in mind, I don't like links. I'm not going to turn this into a link spam deck. I don't even know how you would, I guess with Rescue Cat or whatever. But yeah, so that's it for my Beast deck. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions on it, I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's like some Beast player out there that would be the expert. I don't know. There's so few of us out there. So that's it. Have a good one, guys.